Okay, welcome everyone to the Bronxville Planning Board meeting. It's February 11th. We appreciate everyone coming out tonight. First thing we'll do, I think, is go ahead and review and approve the minutes of our January meeting. Has everyone had a chance to take a look? And if so, would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, terrific. We only have one item on the agenda tonight, and that's Iona's application to improve their existing baseball field. If there's someone here on behalf of the applicant, if you could please come up to the mic, identify yourself, and provide us an update, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark Weingarten. I'm a partner in the law firm of Del Bello, Dinellen, Weingarten, Wise, and Wiener, and it's my pleasure to be here this evening representing Iona University in its ongoing request for site plan approval to permit certain modifications to the baseball field on its Bronxville campus located at 182 White Plains Road. We have our entire team here with us. We've introduced you to them a number of times. I won't do it again, but I will state that I am the only person we are intending to speak, but our entire team is here if there are any questions that you have so that we're able to supply the information that you may need in connection with your consideration of our request. We have appeared before this board on numerous occasions, so I will not repeat the history of our application. As you know, the baseball field is located roughly on 9-acre parcel on the east side of White Plains Road at its intersection with Rose Avenue. It's located in the Residence A district, which principally permits a school use, and athletic fields are permitted as an accessory use. We had our first discussions with the village dating back more than a year ago, and we came to this board for the first time in June of 2025 and presented the proposed modifications to enable us to have the necessary to enable the baseball field to meet Division I standards. Since our last appearance at this board on January 14, we submitted 2 letters to this board. One was dated February 9 and responded to comments from board members at our prior appearance, as well as questions relayed by the board's counsel. The second letter, dated February 10, responded to comments contained in memos from KSCJ Consulting, the village's planning and engineering consultant. That memo was dated February 3, as well as Collier's Engineering and Design, the village traffic and sound study consultants, whose memo was dated January 23rd. There have been and continue to be 4 major areas of concern of potential impacts, which has been identified by this board for study, and that has not changed throughout the process. The first potential impact is stormwater runoff. We have discussed that at all of the meetings. The proposed stormwater improvements will decrease the runoff to Crawford Street 70% in the 110 and 100-year storm events. This far exceeds our legal obligation to mitigate any potential environmental impacts. Our response letter to the KSCJ memo addresses some final technical questions that your consultants had, and I believe we have now answered them in full. The second area of potential impact was sound impacts we were asked to study, both during construction and after. You heard testimony from our sound engineer regarding the proposed PA system, which is for game use only. Our expert testified that the sound level of the PA system at our property's perimeter approximates the typical background noise in the neighborhood experienced at that time of day. He also addressed the temporary issue of noise from construction impacts. As stated at our last appearance, the record should reflect that Iona is willing to commit to use best practices to limit construction noise, including developing a sound and vibration mitigation plan, which will occur once we have a contractor aboard. Again, with respect to this particular potential impact, we believe we have answered all of the questions and submitted all of the information which has been requested of us on this particular item. The third area of impact is safety from batted balls. You have heard from our athletic director regarding the fence height and protection from batted balls. He described the safety mechanisms in place to protect people outside the property. Much of the focus of comments and concerns received during these hearings focused on the area in right field where the fence is at its shortest distance from home plate. As stated in our letter to this board on February 9, Iona remains willing to raise the proposed netting in the outfield from its original 20 feet to 40 feet, and also increase an approximately 40-foot stretch from the foul pole to the first pole in the outfield. It's roughly 40 feet in the field of play, and to increase that from 40 to 45 feet to make sure that there is additional protection at, again, that area of where a home run would go, which would be the shortest distance on the field. Iona, as you know, previously agreed to add netting for the first time along Rose Avenue. The proposal originally was for 20 feet in height. Iona now proposes, due to requests from your board, to wrap around the foul pole and down Rose Avenue towards home plate for a distance of 130 feet with netting at the height of 40 feet along this stretch of Rose, which we believe adequately addresses the comments from this board, the neighbors, and the Westchester County Planning Board regarding protection from the homes, for the homes across the ball field at the shortest part of the field. Iona also previously testified regarding its purchase of a batting cage, which will significantly protect against foul balls on Rose Avenue during batting practice. This is a significant improvement upon the existing condition, which, as you know, practice takes place now with no netting there at all. In addition, for the record, Iona's athletic director testified using the best evidence available, existing statistical data, which is in the record, to demonstrate how unlikely it is for an accident to occur, even at the proposed netting heights, which have now been improved since then. Finally, the last identified potential impact by this board as lead agency in the environmental review process was traffic and parking. We have submitted a game day traffic management plan dated December 23rd, 2025, which was revised on February 9, to include 2 event parking signs on the northbound approach from Route 22 near the entrance to the Meyer Center parking area and the Village Lutheran Church, and 1 event parking sign at the intersection of Rose Avenue and Route 22. The plan also proposes 2 no drop-off signs along Rose Avenue. All signs are proposed to be 36 inches high and 24 inches wide. Iona has also agreed to provide a minimum of 2 parking attendants on site during game events to facilitate proper circulation of vehicles and pedestrians. Iona has also submitted a construction management plan and a further revised parking analysis. We submitted additional information regarding these topics since our last meeting to address the technical questions, and the responses have been received by the village. As to the comments from our tenant, which was raised at the last meeting, Iona met with the Conservancy on February 2. Iona is committed and made it clear to the Conservancy that it would use best practices to ensure safety for the organization's students. Iona has agreed to provide continued ADA access during and after construction, and to have further communications with the Conservancy once a contractor has been retained to discuss specific plan details going forward. In other words, communication. We remind all parties that Iona is also holding classes, including performing arts classes, at the same time on the same campus, and will be very careful to avoid and/or limit disruptions, not just for the Conservancy, but for our students as well. Iona strongly believes it has met its obligations under seeker, and that this board's rules and regulations, and urges the planning board to send this matter, to issue a negative declaration, and to send this matter to the ZBA for determination of the variance requests. We are not asking for a determination of all of the conditions that are out there. It's not necessary for the negative declaration. The environmental review process, we believe, is now complete. You may not agree with all of our conclusions, but you have the information that you have requested. You have all of the expert information. Frankly, if you look at the 4 identified potential impacts, we have improved every one of those areas from the existing condition. That is well beyond our obligation. We not just have mitigated impacts, we've made it better in each one of these instances. You have all of that information with you, which we believe puts you in a position to make a determination. We would then have to go to the zoning board with regard to the neg deck to discuss the variances, of which there are a number of them, and we will have to go do that with them. And if we are successful there, we would then come back to you and have a discussion over all of the potential conditions that have been review here by your board, and there may be others, and have that discussion before a final vote would take place. So that is our view of the process, which we think is at the conclusory stage for this, the environmental review. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board for the applicant?
You know I get paid by the hour, right?
Good try on that one. Okay, good. Thank you for that. And thank you for the updates we've received along the way. If we could have our consultant come up to the mic and please report on your review of the application and your perspective on this, I'd appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone. Eric Dorsch, KSCJ Consulting. I'd like to simply summarize and say that all of the comments have been satisfied to date substantially and satisfactorily. So I appreciate the collaboration with the applicant, and we look forward to continuing the process to ensure everything is covered accordingly and the seeker process sees through thoroughly. And I don't really have any other comments at this time. We've appreciated the back and forth, and thank you.
Any questions from the board for our consultants? You're still here if we come up with some.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You may bill by the hour too, I don't know. It's possible.
Thank you.
Good. So if there aren't any further presentations on this, I'd propose that we open up the public meeting for this. And if anyone from the public would like to comment on this application, please feel free to come up to the mic, identify yourself, and let us know your thoughts.
I don't get paid by the hour, so I've been working really hard on this.
Thank you.
As you know. Good evening, Chairman Goldman and members of the Planning Board. My name is Maria Sigorni, and I live at 37 North Road, and I'm speaking on behalf of my family and 137 neighbors who have formally signed a letter asking for this board to stop and reset this process. I want to be very clear tonight. This board cannot lawfully approve this project as proposed because doing so would directly contradict the Village of Bronxville's Bronxville law does not allow manageable noise, acceptable noise, or noise that is inconvenient but tolerated. The law prohibits unreasonably loud and unusual noise that disturbs the comfort, repose, health, or safety of others. That is not discretionary language. That is a prohibition. The ordinance further makes it unlawful to operate any device, amplification of sound in a manner that disturbs others, and to create noise adjacent to schools or institutions of learning that interferes with their operation. That language exists precisely to protect the residents and children from exactly what is being proposed here. And yet, the record now contains repeated acknowledgments that this project will increase noise, crowd noise, amplifying sound, and construction noise, with mitigation either deferred, temporary, or unenforceable. That is not compliance, that is hope. Statements on the record suggesting that this project does not need to be perfect are legally irrelevant. The standard is not perfection. The standard is whether the project will violate the village code. SECRA does not permit this board to approve a project while assuming violations can be managed later, or excused because mitigation is expensive or inconvenient for a wealthy institutional applicant. Cost is not defense to legality. You have also heard firsthand testimony, not a speculation, from neighbors whose streets and backyards are already affected by flooding and baseballs leaving the field. This proposal increases the intensity, frequency, and scale of activity. Approving a project that will definitely produce recurrent noise impacts and disturb residents is not mitigation. It is authorization of a violation. SECRA requires a hard look before approval. Promises of future coordination or conditions that may expire, may not be enforced, or may be contingent of leases. Temporary agreements do not override permanent law. That is why more than 137 neighbors have asked for minimum reasonable conditions, including no PA system and enforceable noise limits before any vote. Those conditions are not obstruction. They're the minimum necessary to avoid placing the board in direct conflict with the village's own ordinance. Tonight, this board must press pause, not because the project is imperfect, but because approving it now would knowingly authorize conduct that the Bronxville law expressly prohibits. Anything else would expose this village to legal challenge and undermine the integrity of this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, please come on up.
Hi, I'm Jay Curran. I live at 9 Hobart. I understand the process, and I'm not allowed to ask the applicant questions directly, but learning about the increased fence height in right field, the questions that I have are really, I mean, it's encouraging that the fence height is being increased. It's encouraging that the size of the fence down the right field line has been increased. I was having a tough time understanding the curtain is going to come down the right field line, but only at a distance of 100 and some odd feet.
I can't speak on behalf of the applicant,
Right.
but my understanding is there will already be something of a certain height, but there'll be a higher height for the distance that they discussed. Someone can correct that, but they were already increasing the height
Right.
all along the right field line,
Mhm.
but further out, it's going to be further.
The height of the curtain will increase as it moves closer to the foul.
My understanding is it's two-stepper.
Okay. Well, I guess what I would like to know, I think what the board should know is how was the additional 5-foot increase determined, right? When the applicant presented, they gave data showing the average exit velocity in Division I baseball was 86 miles an hour. And the original proposal said that it would take 90 to 95 mile per hour exit velocities to clear the new 40-foot fence height. So my question is, how much additional protection does the 5 feet afford, right? Because if you're designing the fence to capture the average exit velocity, the average hit batted ball, you're sort of implicitly saying there's going to be some outliers and we're going to have some baseballs flying onto White Plains Road. And I really don't, that's hard for me to get my head around. I certainly, if I were in your position, I would want to know what those specific numbers are. How did it go from 40 to 45? How much, what degree of additional protection does that afford? Because the same data set that they presented shows you that the outliers are achieving exit velocities over 100 miles an hour. I know that there are practical limits to what can be done, but really understanding what specifically, how do we go from 40 to 45? What are the numbers behind that? Because that's not something I've seen. Maybe you're privy to it, but we should know what they are. Also, you're only extending that additional fence height for 40 feet. How was that determined? How much greater, if you go 40 feet to the left of the right field foul pole, what is the outfield distance at that point? Where is the outfield fence?
think it's 100 feet.
It's 100 feet, is that, the
100
fence height's at 45 feet.
That's my understanding.
I heard 40, I'm sorry.
Okay, I could be wrong.
I thought, Jim, it was going to extend farther down the right field line, but I thought the extent towards center field was only 40 feet. Yes, can we let the applicant, if the applicant's willing to respond, they can respond. It's their
Yeah,
call.
yeah. So from the foul pole down Rose Avenue, it will go from 20 to 40 feet for a run of 130 feet. So if the fence is 300 feet from home plate, it'll come down 130 feet. If I'm doing the math right, that's 170 feet from home plate. The first base is 90 feet. So roughly you get the sense it's kind of halfway down between first base and a little bit more than halfway down.
And the run towards center field?
And then that's the first piece. That's going to
Yeah.
be 40 feet. Then we already had the fence from 20 to 40 feet for the entire outfield. And we have, because there were concerns of where the shortest part of the fence was, we have poles with footings. This is where the costs come in, and et cetera. So the first pole is 40 feet
Okay.
to the left of the foul
good.
pole, and we increased at 10%. We will tell you that in an uncontroverted nature, we have our study in there that we believe provides the safety based on during games, how many home runs are hit for the entire season. They're not average hits that go out. It's only the home runs that go over and how many there'll be. We have that whole study that's in there, but we agreed to do that to provide added protection. We don't think it's necessary. We did it anyway. So that helps. That's our
Okay.
position.
Thanks, Jay. Feel free to keep going if you have any other questions.
That was really what I wanted to.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Other members of the public, please, if you have any questions, comments.
Hello, good evening. I'm Susan Salerno. I live on Orchard Place. I've been here for decades. I've attended several of these meetings, and yes, we keep hearing about all the wonderful things that Iona has improved, but they've also added a lot of detrimental issues that we've been discussing. One is traffic, and my concern is that living on Orchard Place and Oriole and Tanglewild, there used to be an entrance into what was in Concordia that was closed, lovely, and it was closed because people were parking. And there was a lot of traffic, effectively changing it from a peaceful residential area to a commercial area. So please don't use that as overflow traffic or overflow parking. Please I don't know how you can enforce that, but that would be something that needs to be enforced. The other one, as everyone knows, is a sound issue. We just heard that the sound study says that the sound will be typical of that during the day, something like that. I'm wondering what time that was, and is that the time when games will actually be played? And also, just from batting practice, is that during the game times, or is that some other time? Batting practice can be quite noisy as well, and the balls can travel. So those are my main concerns. Again, sound, traffic, and which will really change the character of the village. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Would you like to make any comments? We're good? Okay, we'll adjourn the public meeting at this time. And I think in terms of next steps here, we've talked about this a little procedurally. Counsel for the applicant has talked about the procedure a little bit. We've spoken with our counsel about it. The procedure is complex because step one is the secret determination, and step two, which would be at a subsequent meeting, if we get there, would be approval of the actual site plan with zoning happening in between. But I think before we get into process, we need to, talk about the merits and give everyone here a chance. There are 5 of us who can vote tonight, but everyone should have a chance to speak about what they believe are the pluses and minuses of the application. So I'm going to take a leap and go first in terms of that, and then everyone should feel free. I think it's really important to note at the outset that my understanding is that Iona has the right to play Division I baseball on this field right now with no improvements, with no changes whatsoever. So the changes they're making with respect to stormwater, with respect to fence height, et cetera, are improvements to the existing condition, but there's nothing to stop them from just playing D1 baseball on the field that they own, that they bought, and they have a team to play there. It's a permitted use already, is my understanding. That's a key piece of background as we consider all of this. Fortunately, because they're proposing improvements, this board has some say about what they're doing, and we've been trying to work collaboratively with them and with the community to improve the plan for everyone. But it's only because they're making improvements that we have any say about this. My view is the application has improved substantially over time on all fronts: stormwater, safety, traffic, parking, noise, lighting. It's benefited from input from the neighbors. It's benefited from input from this board, and I think Iona has been very responsive to those concerns. We've spent a lot of time talking about, in effect, property rights, the rights of the owner of the property to improve their property, the right of the neighbors to have quiet enjoyment of their properties. And it's a balancing act between those. And that's why we have the planning board, is to consider, all of those contending interests. But what I wanted to dive into here really are the broader planning considerations that I think have real impact on my thinking about this. One of Bronxville's real strengths, in addition to being close to the city and having a great school, is the built environment that you have in Bronxville. Bronxville is really a mixed-use community: single-family homes, townhomes, apartments, a thriving commercial district, and colleges. And everything is cheek by jowl. Everything is adjoining. And I think that's part of the charm and attractiveness of Bronxville. You walk around Bronxville and you see a mix of uses. And there are many other communities in Westchester and elsewhere that just consist of mile after mile of single-family homes. And I think our life experience here is enriched by the diversity and the mixed uses that we have in this community. I think if we want to maintain that diversity in Bronxville of built environment, we need to support all of those land uses. We need to be supportive of single-family homeowners, but we also need to be supportive of apartments and schools and colleges and a thriving downtown. I think we sort of need to love all our children equally if we want them all to thrive. And so, when I think about this application, I think in fairness, everyone who bought a home near this field was aware when they bought their home that there was a ball field there and that it had been in use for over 60 years in the community. I think even Concordia, which we love, when they signed up their lease, they knew there was a baseball field when they signed their lease. And so I think the fact that this has such a long history and is well known in the community, I think is a major factor in our consideration. Mixed use has its challenges, and I understand the concerns of the neighbors. We live in a single-family home that's right in the middle of the village. We have an apartment building across the street. We have a parking lot across the street. And so we live with the pluses and minuses of mixed use, but we knew of those when we bought our house, and it's something that we baked into all of our thinking. So my basic take is the applicant has been responsive to every matter we've raised: stormwater, noise, traffic, parking, safety, lighting, et cetera. And although the field has been somewhat fallow for the last few years, I just don't think it's reasonable to ask the applicant to leave the field fallow forever. And so with the cumulative improvements, I'm supportive of this application. And so with that, I'd like to let other board members say their piece.
Michael, I think you put it very well, and I would just add my agreement to what you've said. Thank you.
I would second that. I think if you go through the laundry list of concerns that this board has dealt with over the last number of meetings, all of those concerns have been addressed by Iona. I think Iona has been very responsive. I think the owners of the homes near the field have brought forth legitimate concerns, but I think those concerns have been addressed to a very large extent. And I agree that Michael put this very, very succinctly, and agree with everything that he has said. So I would be supportive in moving on with this. I would add to that too, that this has been a process that began almost a year ago. And the public part of this has been 9 months at this point. And I think each iteration that we've seen has extended from the previous, has been responsive to the questions we've asked, and has been an improvement. Even tonight's, we saw changes. The netting is most notable, which come closer and keep raising the bar. So I am supportive of this. I think that had asked, and many of the things that the neighbors have been concerned about you've tried to bake into those plans and improve them. So, supportive for those reasons.
I'll go next. I'm sorry. Yeah. I also believe that the Iona has made positive improvements, and I thank the public for their comments, the planning board and the consultants. I think between the three of us, Iona has come back and made a lot of improvements, which make me in favor of the application. To Jay's question, though, I went back to my notes. So for Iona, I know it's not for today, it's for the conditions of the next time. Is if my notes are correct, a 40-foot height would stop a 400-foot home run, which I think we said 450 was the longest in World Series history for college. But I would just, if you could talk to that guy, he was very smart, what a 45-foot fence would do, just so we can answer that question. It should be an easy answer. And if there's any impact to the side one from going to 20 to 40, that'd also be helpful, just so we have the complete list of numbers. That's all I have to say.
You feel free.
I'll go next. I'm in agreement with the chairman and the other members of the board that have spoken. I do believe that Iona has very successfully responded to issues that the planning board has posed, and also the community. I will say that the letters that we read from the community and neighbors of the ballpark, I'm definitely reading fear that somehow this is going to change their lives in a very negative way. And I would request that some form of enforcement be put in place to make sure that the promises that are made are being put forth, and that in the event that there are issues, that there is some form of communication between the neighbors and Iona to address those issues, whatever they may be. I mean, we may not even be able to predict what some of them will be. I mean, certainly traffic, potentially noise. It's going to be frustrating. And I know the construction process can be excruciating. But just if there is communication between the neighbors and the school, I think that would really be beneficial to everybody.
Please, Mike.
I'll have a few statements, but I think the baseball field renovation accomplishes several things. First, it upgrades a dilapidated field to something that's more modern and acceptable. I think the flood mitigation measures are a drastic improvement from currently limited mitigation. The traffic management and parking plan should alleviate a lot of the issues that have been articulated. And I think the increased netting does improve some of the safety measures. That being said, light and sound pollution are not typically issues in our carefully curated and beautiful village, but for some reason, right now we're dealing with 3 different real estate development projects within our village where the applicant is desiring to redevelop a piece of real estate they have, and there are concerns of the neighbors around its impact. We are dealing with the Iona application for its baseball field. The school is reviewing adding lights to its fields, and the Bronxville Field Club is reviewing a renovation of its paddle courts. It's on this last issue of sound that I do have some concerns, specifically the introduction of a PA system. I think that is a self-inflicted initiative here that does have impacts on the neighbors. What I'd like to see is that with any PA system, I think there is a lot of trust and responsibility that goes into that on the level of sound, how frequently it's used, the type of music that would be used, et cetera. And what I think would go a long way is Iona building some of that trust with the neighbors. And the best way I think that can be done is that I'm not precluding the approval of a PA system in the future, but Iona demonstrating that through the construction of the baseball field and its stewardship of the field upon construction on how they work with traffic management, how they manage the sounds, and assessing the sounds at that time can then come forward to this board again in the future to apply for the PA system. That allows the baseball field to move forward now without this constant debate around the sound pollution, which accomplishes, I think, most of what they want to be done, which I'm supportive of. And it says, build that trust with the community, show us you're a good steward in managing noise and all the issues. And this board and the neighbors can reassess at that time. And I would be open to reviewing that application, would be positively inclined to it. I just want to see all those steps in between now and then.
Okay, thank you, and thanks to all the board members for their thoughts. Some of the things we're discussing now may end up being part of the agenda for the next meeting, at which we will actually have the site plan. I think the matter that we have before us tonight, and I'll dive into this a little bit, it's going to be a little dull, but procedurally, how things work based on advice from our counsel, that I would never call his input dull. It's time now, I think, to consider SECRA, which is State Environmental Quality Review Act. It's the first step. Site plan, as I said, would be at a subsequent meeting. The test under SECRA is significant adverse impact on the environment. And again, this is about modifications to the field. The field is already there. And so the test under SECRA is not whether there should be a baseball field there. It's will the modifications to that existing baseball field have an adverse impact on the environment. So the only way to do this is for me to read a litany into the record, which I'm going to do. So please bear with me. The environmental issues that we've identified are stormwater, traffic, parking, noise, lighting, and baseball safety. So on stormwater, our consultants have confirmed that, I'm going to quote them, the current stormwater practice design is summarized in the SWPPP and in accordance with New York State Stormwater Management Design Manual proposes a significant reduction in peak stormwater flows in comparison to the existing peak stormwater flows on the subject property. On traffic, the modifications that are being proposed will not add significant traffic volume to Route 22 and therefore would not cause a significant adverse environmental impact. The applicant has included a traffic management and parking plan as part of its application. One of the components of the plan is to have at least 2 uniformed campus security guards working at games to assist in traffic and pedestrian management and to enforce parking restrictions, particularly along Rose Avenue. The plan also provides for event signage to guide traffic flow. On the parking front, the applicant has submitted the data requested about game attendance at Iona and other schools. As part of the traffic management and parking plan, the applicant has identified the parking spaces that will be available for parking during games. The applicant has also made part of their application that there will not be conflicting events scheduled during games. On the noise front, the applicant's plan for application at the field and information regarding crowd noise has been reviewed by the village's consultant. Based on the information we've reviewed, we do not believe that the proposal will result in a significant adverse environmental impact regarding noise. However, we will be sure during the site plan process that the elements of the application containing the limitations on noise production are embedded in any determination we make, and there will be monitoring to ensure that they are adhered to. Lighting. The application provides that there will be no, field lighting for night games. There will be safety and security lighting. Those details have been reviewed by our consultants to ensure they will not have a negative impact on neighbors. As with amplification, we will be sure that during the site plan process, the elements of the plan relating to lighting are memorialized and they will be monitored. In terms of baseball safety, the application provides for substantially enhanced netting and fencing to prevent baseballs from exiting the field, and the applicant has further heightened right field fence and wrapped it around the corner into foul territory. I believe this is a substantial improvement over existing conditions. Also, one other note about the site plan, the construction impacts, and we were talking about this a little bit, are going to be significant. If the application is ultimately approved, once the actual timing of construction is known and the proposed methods of a chosen contractor are known, there will be a detailed construction management plan approved by the village's consulting engineers and building official, addressing issues and days of operation, noise, parking, staging, traffic, etc. And so the environmental determination is a two-step process. First, there's the issuance of Part 2 of the environmental assessment form, which our consultants have helped prepare, and then the making of the environmental determination. I know the board members have had an opportunity to review the Part 2. I thought there might have been a question or two about Part 2. Tom, did you have any questions for our consultant before we take action on Part 2? You think you're good? Okay. So do I have a motion to issue the Part 2 environmental assessment form as our own document?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, second. Do I have a motion to issue a negative declaration that for the reasons I've stated, the proposal will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and finally, do I have a motion to direct our attorneys and consultants to provide us with a writing incorporating the substance of what we have said and done here?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there's one other motion that I would think we would need today, which is to send the application on to zoning. It would then come back to us for final site plan review once they do that, but this would keep them moving through the zoning process, and there are substantial zoning process variances for them to review. So a final motion, please, on sending this to zoning.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second. All in favor? Thanks for coming out, everybody.